Welcome to ECO202 Study Session 4, Consumption Function, Introduction. In this study session, we'll examine one of the components of aggregate expenditure, the consumption function. The shape of this function is very important for analyzing the impact of government policies on the economy. And we shall discuss the important theories of consumption and also the various factors that affect the consumption function. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Highlight the importance of consumption function in macroeconomics. 2. Discuss the 3 important theories of consumption function. 3. Highlight the factors that influence the shape of the consumption function. Determinant of consumption. The main determinant of consumption is surely income, or more precisely, disposable income. When disposable income goes up, people buy more goods. When it goes down, they buy fewer goods. There are other variations that affect consumption for the moment. We shall ignore them. Let C denote consumption and YD denotes disposable income. We can write C equals ID. This is just a formal way of stating that consumption is a function of disposable income. The function C bracket YD is called the consumption function. The positive sign below YD means a positive relation between disposable income and consumption. It captures the fact that when disposable income increases, so does consumption. Economists call such an equation a behavioral equation, to indicate that the equation captures some aspect of the behavior, in this case, the behavior of consumption. It is often useful to be more specific about the forms of functions. For example, to assume that the function is linear. Here is such a case. It is reasonable to assume that the relation between consumption and disposable income is given by C equals CO plus C1 YD. We are assuming now that the function is a linear relation. It is characterized by 2 parameters, C0 and C1. Let's look at each in turn. The parameter C1 is called the marginal propensity to consume. It gives the effect on consumption of an additional naira of disposable income. If C1 is equal to 0.7, then an additional naira of disposable income increases consumption by 1 naira times 0.7, which gives us 70%. A natural restriction on C1 is that it is positive. An increase in disposable income is likely to lead to an increase in consumption. Another natural restriction is that C1 is less than 1. People are likely to consume only part of an increase in income and to save the rest. The parameter C0 has a simple interpretation. It is what people would consume if their income level in the current year were equal to 0. A natural restriction is that if current income is equal to 0, consumption is still positive. This implies that C0 is positive. How can people have positive consumption if their income is equal to 0? This is made possible by either savings, borrowing, or both. This means that a consumer can either lean back on what he had saved before or actually go on borrowing. Theories of consumption function. The Keynesian theory. The basic hypothesis of the Keynesian theory of the consumption function is that current consumption is related to current income. Algebraically, this implies that C is a function of Y where C is current consumption and Y is current income. However, more appropriately, the Y in the function is supposed to be YD, that is disposable income. To fully expose this hypothesis, Keynes introduced two other components, the average and the marginal propensity to consume. The average propensity to consume, APC, is the proportion of income spent on consumption. In other words, it is the ratio of consumption expenditure to total income. That is, APC equals C over Y. The marginal propensity to consume, on the other hand, measures the relation between changes in consumption and changes in income. Change in Y. It is the ratio of change in C, that is change in consumption, to change in Y, change in income. That is, MPC equals change in C over change in Y. Two basic hypotheses provide the core of the Keynesian theory of the consumption function. Number one, there is a break-even level of income at which APC equals 1. Below this level, APC is greater than 1, and above it, APC is less than 1. The marginal propensity to consume is greater than 0 but less than 1 for all levels of income. The Keynesian theory, as enunciated above, relates current consumption to current income. However, empirical studies carried out by researchers have not supported this theory. This has led to several modifications of the hypothesis as discussed below. The permanent income hypothesis. This theory was developed by Professor Milton Friedman. The hypothesis makes two important assumptions. First, people's income fluctuates. Second, people dislike fluctuating consumption. Thus, people will always try to minimize the effect of fluctuation in income on their consumption. Friedman believes that people's consumption is influenced by their permanent income rather than current income, as argued by Keynes. Thus, during period of temporary increase in their income, households do not increase their consumption by the same proportion. This is because they perceive such increment as temporary. Therefore, they will save most of this temporary extra income and put money aside to see them through the year when income is usually low. People will only increase their level of consumption if their permanent income has significantly increased. The life cycle hypothesis. This was jointly developed by Professors Franco Modigliani and Albert Ando. The theory is very similar to the first one. The theory assumes that people have a clear conception about what their income will be over their lifetime, and on that basis form a lifetime consumption plan. Just like the permanent income hypothesis, the life cycle hypothesis suggests that it is average long-run income rather than current income that is likely to determine the total demand for consumer spending. The figure above shows a household's actual income over its lifetime. O is the household's permanent income. OF is also the maximum amount that the household could spend on consumption each year without accumulating debt that are passed on to future generations. If the interest rate was 0, permanent income would just be the sum of all expected income divided by the number of expected years of life, or simply put, average income over one's lifespan. Absolute income hypothesis. Keynes' consumption income relationship is known as the absolute income hypothesis, which states that when income increases, consumption also increases, but by less than the increase in income, and vice versa. This means that the consumption income relationship is non-proportional. James Tobin, an author Smithies tested these hypotheses in separate studies and came to the conclusion that the short-run relationship between consumption and income is non-proportional. But the time series data show the long-run relationship to be proportional. The later consumption-income behavior results through an upward shift or drift in the short-run non-proportional consumption function due to factors other than income. Relative income hypothesis. This theory was developed by James Dersenberg. It is based on the rejection of the two fundamental assumptions of the consumption theories of Keynes. Dersenberg states that 1. Every individual's consumption behavior is not independent but interdependent on the behavior of every other individual, and 2. That consumption relations are irreversible and not reversible in time. In formulating his theory of the consumption function, Dersenberg writes, a real understanding of the problem of consumer behavior must begin with a full recognition of social character of consumption patterns. By the social character of consumption patterns, it means the tendency in human beings not only to keep up with Dionysus, but also surpass the Dionysus. In other words, the tendency is to strive constantly towards a higher consumption level and to emulate the consumption patterns of one's rich neighbors and associates. Implications of the theories. 1. The effect of changes in income on consumption. The major implication of these theories is that changes in a household's current income will affect actual consumption only so far as they affect its permanent income. 2. Implication on the behavior of the economy. The theories also hold that actual consumption is not much affected by temporary changes in income. 3. The theories lays stress on factors other than income which affect the consumer behavior. Factors influencing consumption. Empirical studies suggest that many factors influence consumption. The first and arguably the most important factor is the disposable income of the people. The above relationship between consumption and disposable income assumes other factors affecting consumption are constant. Some other factors would however cause a shift in the consumption function. These factors are the following. Changes in income distribution. If households have different marginal propensity to consume MPC, aggregate consumption depends not on aggregate income, but also on the distribution of this income among households. Changes in the distribution of income will cause a change in aggregate level of consumption expenditure associated with any given level of national income. 2. Changes in the terms of credit. Many durable consumer goods are purchased on credit. If credit becomes more difficult or more costly to obtain, many households may postpone their planned credit finance purchases. There would then be a temporary reduction in current consumption expenditure until the necessary extra savings are accumulated. Monetary authority can, by controlling the cost and availability of credit, shift the consumption function and thus affect aggregate demand. 3. Changes in existing stock of durable goods. It is now recognized that any period in which durable goods are difficult or impossible to purchase and monetary savings are accumulated, it is likely to be followed by a sudden outburst of expenditure on durables. Therefore, this will shift upward the consumption function. Number 4, changes in price expectation. If households expect inflation to occur, they will be willing to purchase durable goods which they would otherwise not have bought for another 1 or 3 years. In such circumstances, purchases made now yield savings over the purchases in the future. 5. Government policy. Changes in government policies can also affect the relation between national income and disposable income. For example, by altering tax rates. An increase in income tax rate will, for example, reduce the amount of disposable income that reaches the hands of households out of any level of national income. This would therefore make the consumption function curve to shift downwards. Study session summary. In this study session, you examine the consumption function. This is the largest component of aggregate demand. Various theories have sprung up to explain the behavior of this important function. There is the theory by Keynes, absolute income hypothesis, which states that consumption depends on current income. Other theories, notably the permanent income hypothesis, the life cycle hypothesis, and the relative income hypothesis, however, argue that consumption is a function of permanent rather than current income. This is the end of study session 4. Thanks for listening.